Good morning. We are revisiting a couple of plants today. This is one we saw back, I think, in June. This is Spikenard, and here it is in fruit. It had these big clusters of creamy white flowers back in late spring. Now they produce their berries, which when they're ripe are kind of a dark red, even purple sometimes. But you'll see some that aren't ripe yet. I'm not sure if they were fully pollinated or just why they didn't ripen, but they're size of a small pea when they're ripe, and then they're eaten by lots of things. We've had a rough grouse hanging out in here for the last week or so, and I don't know what else he or she would be eating besides these, but they weigh, grouse weigh 3 or 4 pounds. I don't know if they could sit on this branch or not, but maybe. But that's what I suspect they're in here eating. As I described back earlier when we first looked at this back in early summer, this looks like a shrub to most people, but this is an herbaceous plant. It'll die back to the ground with hard frost and then regrow from the ground in spring. And this whole thing, from my left hand all the way up here, is, believe it or not, one leaf. This is a doubly pinnately compound leaf. Each of these is just a leaflet. There's not a bud in each axil. The bud's down here. So this is one large leaf on the pinnately compound leaf. We happen to have white ash growing right next to it, and this is an example of a plant with just a single pinnately compound leaf. Again, this whole thing right here is one leaf. And these are leaflets. That's one leaf right there. So again, spikenard is a spectacular plant, and great when it's in bloom in late spring, early summer, and great in the fall when it produces its berries and lots of different birds. And I suspect squirrels and chipmunks eat the berries too. So a great wildlife plant as well, spikenard. Here we have Pearly Everlasting, really beautiful common name, Pearly Everlasting. Another of the many plants in the Aster family, blooms late in the season, late summer, early fall, and it has these little pearl-like, these are gone past a little bit. The center would be yellow, the anthers would be yellow a couple weeks ago, but it looks like a little pearl, about the size of a pearl too, and that's where it gets the name Pearly. Everlasting refers to the fact that if you cut these when they're at full bloom or just before, they'll dry well, so they make a really nice dried flower. Narrow gray-green leaves, that's when you crush them, smell a little bit like lemons. And one of the great things about this plant, and the reason I planted it at my house in my garden, is that it's the host plant for the American painted lady butterfly. The butterfly will lay its eggs on this plant. The caterpillar will feed on the foliage, and then it'll form a cocoon, a chrysalis, because it's a butterfly, and fly away. It'll devastate the plant, and it looks like it's dead, but it grows out of it later in the season. So the ones that I planted at my house looked terrible back in July, and they look great now. So they do grow back out of that. But this is a great plant ornamentally, and it's got that great name, Pearly Everlasting, and it's great for butterfly gardening. The fall color season is beginning up in Door County, and here's our first example. This is Virginia creeper, also called woodbine, in its wonderful red fall color. This is a plant, it's in the same family as grape. It's a relative to grapes, and it's an example of a plant with a palmately compound leaf. Again, this is one leaf. We just saw spikenard with its doubly pinnately compound leaf. This has a different arrangement for a compound leaf. It's called palmate. like the palm of your hand. The leaflets emanate from one single place on the petiole. So palmately compound. We didn't see this in flower back in spring. It has a loose cluster of whitish flowers, and there are no fruit on this one, but it forms a cluster of like little grapes, maybe the size of a pea. And like a lot of grapes, they have that waxy coating on it. It's called a bloom, B-L-O-O-M, a bloom, waxy bloom. But the main thing is the fall color. And people who come to the clearing see this plant all over. It's the vine that crawls up the lodge, crawls up the schoolhouse. And even looking down here, it'll not just climb up trees and structures, but it'll grow along the ground. It kind of has a loose ground cover. That's how you often see it. It can actually become a little weedy. I pull this in my garden because it'll take over if I don't. But it really hits its stride this time of year when it starts to color. Like this one right here, Virginia creeper, also called woodbine. Here's another plant we saw back in late spring. This is maple leaf viburnum. Viburnum's a huge genus of plants, and some of them have leaves that look like a maple leaf, and they're opposite like maples, so many people will think, well, this is just a small maple tree. But maples don't get berries like this. They only get those dry winged seeds called samaras. So here's maple leaf viburnum in full fruit. It had these clusters of white flowers back in late spring. They produce, in the end, these dark blue, dark purple berries that birds and chipmunks will eat. So very attractive and a great wildlife plant. And the other nice thing about maple leaf viburnum this time of year is that it begins to produce really wonderful fall color. Kind of a pinkish red. Even in shade, it'll produce really nice fall color. One of the best native plants up here for fall color. So great fall color on the foliage, great fruit, great for attracting wildlife, maple leaf viburnum, one of my favorites. Our last plant for today is another aster. This is heartleaf aster, called that because the leaves at the bottom are kind of heart-shaped, but all the leaves have these wings along the petiole, much more pronounced on the bottom leaves because the petioles are longer. But you can even see it on the upper leaves where there's a bit of a wing on each side. So that's indicative of heartleaf aster. Another one of the asters with purplish or bluish purple flowers, very pretty. And I see that as they fade, just like calico aster, they go from a yellow center, which are called the disc flowers, to purple. So a nice two-tone effect. But very nice. Like most asters, it likes sunny areas. So here it is out in the homestead meadow, along the edge of woods, ditches, roadsides. The only aster up here that likes the shade is the big leaf aster, which we saw a while ago. So this is, and a nice red stem too. So a very nice late season bloomer, heartleaf aster.